Garba, a former presidential aspirant. Good to have you, Mr. Ohazuki.
Thank you. Good morning, Tiana Veso.
All right, it's a pleasure having you.
Good morning.
Now, beyond being a lawyer, you're also a public affairs analyst, and I know you've been following developments in the country. Could you give us a sense of what you think is the security situation in the country at the moment, and are you comfortable with what is going on?
Thank you, Nkoli. I don't think any Nigerian who supported President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015, or indeed any other Nigerian who listened to the president's inaugural speech in 2015 would have believed that 6 years into his presidency, Nigerians will just gather and be discussing the very basic issue of security. Truly, very many supporters of this president believed in 2015 that issues of security, issues of corruption, and issues of the economy will not be the basic discussions. That by now Nigerians should have been discussing issues of rocket science, issues of how to land a spaceship in the moon, or even getting close to the sun, because they had believed that with President Muhammadu Buhari as president, in 2-3 years max, or maybe by the end of his first term, these issues would not have formed the basic issues for discussion. Unfortunately, all these three, it was this tripod promises by the president in his 2015 election and inaugural speech. Nigerians still see that those three issues are worse than they were in 2015, and it's very simple and it's a very factual issue. Security is so bad in Nigeria that nobody can travel outside the city centers now. Nobody wants to travel outside. Once you can help it, you wouldn't want to travel outside the city center, except there is an airport in the city where you're going to. You fly to that place and you fly back. But if any Nigerian is told to travel less than 200 kilometers from Abuja, the federal capital territory, to Kaduna, to Lokoja, to Mina, you just jump into prayers immediately. If there is an issue that must take you by road to any of these locations, you just start praying immediately. Not because you wouldn't have ordinarily loved to pray or there's anything wrong in prayer, but all your alarms are blaring because you know that it is danger that you're going to face. Nigeria was not that bad before 2015. People were traveling freely, but now everything has collapsed. And I'm looking at a Niger State governor saying Boko Haram has taken over Shiroro. And how did I hear Shiroro first as a small kid? There's a Shiroro dam. What happens if they blow up the Shiroro dam to cause Nigeria pain? These are the issues. How did we allow Boko Haram to come into the city center? Niger State is in north central Nigeria, so it means Boko Haram has come into the city center. Earlier, there was an argument. They were APC leadership, the military, the president. Okay, let me just no. Let's leave every other person. Nobody is culpable here except the president, because he's the one we elected. Every other person is somebody he appointed to do the job for him. So if that person fails, there's vicarious liability for the president. When that person succeeds, it is the President Muhammadu Buhari regime that succeeded. So he takes responsibility for the failures or inactivity or whatever by any of his appointees. Now, we have a situation where a president appoints people and they are not doing well, and he sits and watches them enjoying their inactivity, their inaction, their docility, their incompetence. The president enjoys that. And it's unfortunate that in a situation like this, a state like Niger State, where our power comes from, Niger State is called the power state because most of our hydropower comes from Niger State. And you are telling us that Niger State has fallen into the hands of enemies, and you begin to wonder, how did Nigeria get to that extent? Now, let me draw this line here to say there was an argument the presidency was making that before there were bombs in Kano, bombs were going off in Abuja, bombs here, bombs there, that they've cut off that one. That security has improved. But watching closely the way things have been happening in recent times, I don't think it may have been that we defeated the Boko Haram in that area. The guys look like they just changed plans and tactics, because with what is happening now, you see that the guys are cruising. And it's unfortunate. This is 6 years into the general's regime.
Like you pointed out, securing the country, is among the 3 priority areas of the president, in addition to building a resilient economy and, of course, fighting corruption in the country. What do you think could be the roadblock in efforts by this administration to secure Nigeria in the last 6 years? Could there be impediments, before the current administration? What could be the missing link?
Now, see, I think there's something Nigerians have not understood. Only very few persons may know that. And those very few persons are persons who are very close to the president. How a country can run with an invisible president, I don't think anybody could have envisaged that before now. That a country can actually run for years with an invisible president. In a situation like this, what stops our president from addressing Nigerians? See, where Garba issues a statement on behalf of the president, it doesn't carry the same weight. Nobody should confuse anybody or deceive anybody and say, after all, he has spokesmen who have spoken for him. Listen, a Nigerian who walked up to the polling booth, picked his ballot paper, cast his vote for the president, will want to hear that president speak to him at times in certain dire situations. Whether you speak through Femi Adesina and Garba Shehu combined, it doesn't make the same impact as when the voter has seen the candidate he voted for his president. Because when you are speaking, somebody says, my president is speaking, wait. But when Garba Shehu is speaking, you say Garba Shehu is speaking. That is if you want to be interested. But when your president is speaking, it carries a different weight.
But we asked, our reviewers much earlier, what difference, will a presidential speech make at this point in time when there are killings, across the country, from the northwest to the northeast to the north central, the southeast, and even the south-south. The nation is in crisis. What difference would a presidential speech between a presidential speech and concrete actions? Which should Nigeria prioritize at this point in time?
When the chief of army staff visited Maiduguri after his appointment, what did he tell Nigerians? That he had gone to the theater of war to boost the morale of the troops. When the president went there, what did he say? To boost the morale. So it tells you that the speech of the president will not stop the killer, but it will boost the morale of the soldier who is to stop the killer. It's as simple as that. Now, when the president speaks, and since the gaps he had made earlier in his first term, nobody hears the president speak extempore again. It's only a written speech that he reads. Couldn't the president just read that speech to boost the morale of soldiers? When was the last time he called on the soldiers directly? We used to remember those days. I was young when Nigeria went for one competition. Abacha will sit down, he will call out the football players. I think Nigeria won that competition. That was Tunisia 94. That was in 1994. That was the final between Nigeria and Zambia. Thank you very much. Abacha sat down and was speaking to all the players. And those guys, when they see everything they saw in that pitch, Nigeria was going to win that match. If you had put the Brazilian team in that match, Nigeria would have won because the president spoke to you directly. So he gave them a sense of time and he made you everything Nigeria. All right, so let's see, we cannot. I think the handlers of the president must come to a conclusion that it is time they insist that the president must speak to Nigerians directly, speak to the troops directly. See the call made by the chief of defense. I think that was the minister of defense that said Nigerians should defend themselves. This ragtag army. If the president had said to Nigerians, defend yourselves, you see Nigerians will defend themselves because the president has spoken. It's not the same thing. It's just like your house girl telling your child something, and then you come and say, hey, stop, because money has said it, because time has said it. It's different. The same message the house girl passed is the same message you have passed, but who said it is important. The daddy said it, mom said it. That does the magic. Okay, to find a solution to a problem of insecurity, many have said the first thing is to find the root cause of the problem. I think the US also is taking towing that line, saying the insecurity situation has become so embarrassing that Nigerians should look for the root cause of this problem and begin to deal with that. So in your own thinking, what do you think has actually fueled the kind of insecurity we're having in the country at the moment? You know, the presidency is complicit here because they have defined the insecurity in different terms to suit their narrative. In the Northwest, it's banditry. In the Northeast, it's insurgency. In the Southeast is secessionist agitation. Then in the North Central, it's herdsmen. So to suit the presidency, to the president, they have variously described these things. And so if you now say the root cause, will it be proper to say there is one root cause for all of them, or could we start segmenting it to say, okay, the root cause for insurgency is this?
All of them are criminal activities.
No, it's not. The issue of insecurity is not about crime. It's not just crime. Let's call it what it is, because sorry, a pickpocket doesn't hurt you. So we're not talking, pickpocketing is a crime. So we're not discussing such crimes. You understand? A burglar who moves into your room when you're at work and takes your television and a few changes size in the house hasn't hurt you physically. But we're talking about guys who move out and take pleasure in killing people. I saw the photos from Anambra, Buhari in Anambra, and I wept. I saw the photos from Anambra and I was like, how did we get debased to this level? See, the causes of these things, you can't pinpoint one cause and say, oh, that's the root cause. But a failing economy, a constricting economy that people who hitherto could have fed themselves can no longer feed themselves, because the cost of the agitation in the Southeast is different, totally different, is identifiable. The people say, oh, we want Biafra. And everybody knows why they say they want Biafra. Oh, they are crying for marginalization, this and that. And I said it on this show. I think that was the last time I was here. See, you are not dealing with people who are yet to turn. You are dealing with people who are yet to turn enemy to their hosts. Even if you call them ESN and you say they are terrorists, as they have been designated, they have not turned hostile to their hosts. But we have a Boko Haram now that are also designated as terrorists, but they have turned hostile to their hosts. So the issues are different. What solves this wouldn't solve this. And the solution to the ESN issue is to ensure that you engage now and they will not turn hostile to their hosts.
They don't appear
people are keeping camp. People like the Southeast are keeping camp, except when there are these shootings, and you can know that they are targeted shootings.
They don't appear to be open to that kind of dialogue, because you remember the Southeast governors actually came up with an outfit that can help to quell the kind of insecurity issues we're having in the South.
Which outfit?
And the ESN has said if you join them, you're in a room.
Listen. See what you say back inside the government house. That's where they will operate. Listen, the Igbo people are not even connected to the thing, because the way the governors are doing it, where are the laws backing it up? Someone sat down and said, you bring people who are there.
No. In their last meeting, they have discussed that in their various states, they are going to enact laws to back it up.
Do you remember when Amoteku was announced? Governor Boy, Umahi said, oh, the Southwest copied it from the Southeast. Do you remember that? How many months ago? You remember that Amoteku was fully launched, laws passed, and launched in Ondo State because Akeredolu needed to use it as successes for his re-election. That election happened as far back as October 20th last year. Now, the person that copied you had gone through the whole hall, made these laws, established the things, they started operating, and you now come 7-8 months down the line, and you now announce it has not connected. Those guys are not thinking. But they are not. It's not sort of pressure. That's why they now say, "Oh, what do we do? What do we do?" And they have just set up that thing. If you look at it, if it was a product of a thought process, you would have seen a better output.
First, that you seem to be disposed to conversations with your advocacy for the presidents to come out, and speak to Nigerians. But the People's Democratic Party yesterday called on the president to initiate a security summit as part of measures to address this problem. Are you okay with that?
Security summit. So that they will tell the president what to do, or they will tell Nigerians how to defend. See, it may be another tea drinking jamboree. That's what I see it as. It's good to continue talking. I'm an advocate of continuing discussing until you get to the end of it. But what will be everybody who can be invited to such a summit can be summoned by the president to say, what do we do? You don't need a summit properly so called, so that there will be jamboree, opening ceremony, national anthem. Spreader sits down. He says, okay, we need to discuss. Who do we talk to? A list is drawn up. Invite these people. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, they are meeting with the president. They are discussing issues of security. These things can happen even without the media. Security issue. Let it happen without the media. Let decisions be taken. How can you, at up till 6 years into President Muhammadu Buhari's regime, they are still discussing, 199 billion missing from security funds, invite chief of army staff, invite minister of finance, invite budget. Why should we still be discussing such issues when insecurity has been our major challenge for so long? Should it be? I agree for discussions, but I don't agree for jamboree.
All right, some people have actually said, well, beyond what you have deduced as part of the issue that is fueling insecurity, there are also people who are occupying positions of leadership or positions of power who they think shouldn't be there. Probably their actions or inactions in the past may have, helped to aggravate the insecurity issues we're having. A case in point is that of the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Pantami, whom there's this public outcry that he should leave office because of the perceived link, so to speak, with the terrorist group in the past. Do you think this is a line government should toe at this point?
I'll answer you with an analogy on the issue of Pantami specifically. If this is my office and I see a very big cobra, I'm not a snake hunter. I know what to do first is to ask everybody, let's leave, seal this place, and look for help that can take care of the snake, right? But I think because I'm the boss, and now everybody, go and kill the snake, and you rush in because the boss has said so, and the snake, bam, 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 everybody goes down, and somebody comes out and says, "Oh, recruit 50 million staff, and now go recruit a new set of staff, send them to," and the snake continues taking them out. And I say, okay, we need to make approvals. We approve money, we buy kitchen knife and give people kitchen knife to go and kill the snake. I give some brooms to sweep out the snake from the place. And they rush in with their broom and their kitchen knife and spoons. The snake will take care of them. That is the situation we have found ourselves. So on issue of Pantami is like that snake that is in that office that ordinarily needs to be taken care of, but who has not been taken care of, and the president is defending him by his actions and inactions. Actions, see that statement issued by Garba on behalf of the president, that was the lowest the presidency has gone in the last 50 years. To defend a man who has not been investigated, the presidency did that. If you remember during Babacho Lawan, presidency gave him a clean bill of health and waiting for fair hearing. Fair hearing means further investigation, right? When it happened, that was taken care of by the acting president, Vice President Oshibanjo. Now, you have defended Pantami to say, give me a clean bill of health, he's one of us, this and that and that. And later, after that statement, a new audio recording has been unearthed where he said he was going to lead an army of Muslims to go and kill Christians in Plateau State. And that's the person the president defended. Listen, okay, don't sack him. Pantami has been doing wonderfully well, let's concede. But that somebody is doing wonderfully well and there's a crime painted against his name, does it stop investigation? If he had been investigated, nothing would have stopped the president from directing full investigation. And before he defended, he would not make his defense for Pantami based on a concluded investigation. Right. So he didn't conclude the investigation, and you defended the man, and the man has clearly said, some people in Nigeria are infidels, and that he is happy when those citizens are killed. Who says that?
All right, just hold your thoughts a bit. Barrister Tochukwu Hazurike. We now have joining us from our presidential aspirant, Adamu Garba. Thanks for joining us in the studio this morning.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we have been looking at the state of the nation, particularly the security crisis rocking virtually every part of this country. I would have loved to get your view on how the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has, been able to address this crisis in the last 6 years. But you came at a time when Barrister Ohazuke was responding to a very touchy issue, and that's about the controversy surrounding the Minister of Digital Economy and, of course, Communications. Maybe we should have you respond to that the comments, you've heard him speak on it, you've heard his views on it. What's your own position on this debate concerning Pantami? There have been several calls on the minister to resign based on the comments he made in the past that seem to give him as someone who supports terrorism and terrorist organizations globally. Let's have your introduction.
Thank you very much for the question. On the issue of Pantami, if you notice the period where most of these tense statements were made, that was in the aftermath of the September 11 attack, when there was invasion in Afghanistan, and there were a lot of global outcry within the entire Muslim world that the US is against Islam. So mainly in every single place in the world where there is some Muslims, there are a lot of statements around why should US come and invade the Muslim land, and then with that there's a lot of polarization that have taken place within almost all other countries. So what Pantami was doing as at that time, to my knowledge, was responding to the status that is almost everywhere in the world as at that moment. And at that moment, so many people went so deep into the issue that I was citing so many examples. If you go in 2001, 2002, most of the boys that are even born in several areas like Kano, they are named Osama. This is to show you how acceptable Osama bin Laden was as at that time. By then, they were telling us that they are trying to protect the Muslims from the incursion of the West. It was later, after a certain period of time, that we discovered that there is no bigger frauds, there is no bigger crime than terror. So many people that have made such statement either recanted or regretted what they have done. So the statement that Pantami did afterwards was somewhat like, again, coming back and say that, look, what I did then was out of confusion, because myself at then I don't understand exactly the situation until after some moments where we now came to discover that the bigger fraud is actually people like Osama bin Laden, and I had to stop it. And again, if you track his records after those periods, you will see very clearly that his actions completely showed a complete reformed individual away from the individual that he was supposed to be at that time. Go and check the history of all those terrorist organizations. The whole ideology around terrorism is go against the West. That's the whole ideology. Don't go to school. The word Boko Haram, like our own terror in Nigeria, means Western education is I can say it's an aberration. Throw away anything that has to do with West or Western education. Now check the track record of Dr. Pantami. You find out that he has consistently been a Western education evangelist, and he has participated in all to MIT, to all of the institutions that are globally recognized. He participated in different programs. He was at one point even an Islamic teacher or maybe a lecturer in the mosque in the US, in the UK, right? So when you look at these things, you see very clearly that this man's actions have actually in every other way exonerate him from the past.
But that situation,
yes,
between the US and Pakistan,
yes,
and other countries, warrants a man in the class of an Islamic scholar to support the killing of those he described as infidels.
Let me explain to you something, right?
Because if Nigerians would have easily forgiven if that statement was made by just anybody, but
yes,
we are talking about a man who made those kind of comments wearing the toga of an Islamic cleric.
That's why I gave you historical antecedents. As at that moment, at the beginning of the war on terror, we had invasion into Afghanistan, and subsequently 2 years after, we have another invasion into Iraq. And those leaders in those areas, spent leaders, have attacked against Islam. And there was an historical antecedent again to that when USSR invaded Afghanistan in the late 1979 to early 1980s. Everybody was thinking that we have to go and defend the Muslim land. There has been this kind of euphoria that has been taking place whenever there is an attack on a country that is predominantly Muslim. The entire Muslim world will feel like, oh, they want to eliminate us. Because that's how they paint it, to attract global sympathy. It's just a kind of an intelligence or very serious, carefully strategic intelligence program whereby you now get global support and global sympathy for you to be able to lobby in the UN against some soft landing. That's what they do. So Osama bin Laden decided to paint himself as that kind of person, a state actor who is in defense of Muslims, and then therefore you have America coming to destroy them. So that's the reaction. So almost Dr. Pantami, nearly all Muslim preachers spoke about this kind of things. We have different Islamic doctrines. So Pantami is belonging to another doctrine, and there are so many doctrines like the Qadriya order, like the Tijaniya order, like even the Shia order. All of them, they have their own doctrines, and but the consensus of Osama, almost all of them said this is it. At that moment, and later they now discover that this guy is actually a fraud, and everybody now have to withdraw, and then they have to recalibrate their priorities, and then begin to connect to the normal realm. So of course you can attack somebody, you know, based on his past antecedents as much as possible, but then there are weights. If you did not act, there is no law that is binding on you to be able to be prosecuted based on what you say, but based on what you do. Having intention is not a crime. Having ushered a word, no matter how fairy it sounds, might not be a crime as at that time, because we don't have hate speech laws. Then, but again, action is another thing. Was there any action from Dr. Pantami? I doubt if there is any. So of course we may be sensationalized. This is a country that has different religion. We have Christianity, we have Islam, and everybody have equal right to the Nigerian state, and also they are all principal actors in the Nigerian making. So therefore we cannot allow one part of religion to be able to castigate the other. That is bad. But the sensation at that moment is actually a different sensation, which we have to give it some clear understanding.
Mr. Garba, Islam, we understand, is a very peaceful religion that does not preach violence. At every point I meet Islamic clerics, that's what I get to hear, and even the Quran also does not support, you know, violence. If Mr. Pantami, for instance, at that time he said he was young, and like you said, doesn't understand the issues at that point clearly, but you know that such statements may have instigated many other people, particularly when he is an Islamic cleric that used to have many followers, just like having a Christian as well. When you are a leader that people look up to, many people may have been misled by your statements and your utterances at the time. Now you have the opportunity to be exposed, to be trained, and then you have changed your ideology, like Pantami is claiming. What happens to people who you have instigated in the past, who probably do not have the kind of opportunity you have and the exposure you have, that are still dealing with the issues you talked about at that point, even till now?
There is no link between what I say and the action somebody decided to do. There's no link between that. This is just, we need to just understand this. It is your own individual choice to be able to act based on what somebody said. It is your individual choice to decide to get into the fire when I ask you to do so.
You are an influencer.
I'm coming. Yes, I'm coming. I'm coming there. I'm coming to respond to that. Now, but if you look at these Islamic preachers, particularly him, Dr. Pantami, and so many of them, at so many points in time, they may say, this is what we believe, that should be the religious pretext for this particular action. And then later, they will now retract and say, no, I think that was a mistaken judgment. This must have been the more appropriate. So most of those followers of theirs that have accepted or believed in their own teachings usually follow through them step by step. And as they change from one particular view to another, those followers of those change from that view to the other. The problem we have is that we tend to pick that negative side that is more newsworthy than actually the corrections that have happened. Because over a period of time, you will see there are many places where he talks about the sensationalism of these kind of statements that are very fairy statements. Then later, there are so many retractions throughout the preaching. There are sometimes they may have about 100 different fatwas, they call them fatwa, viewpoints. And then they will now do another 100 again, countering the entire 100 they did. So any of their sincere followers always understand that this is what it used to be, what my sheikh said it is. But again, later my sheikh said, I think that viewpoint was wrong, and this is what that should be more appropriate right now. So their followers are actually following through the navigation of the change.
We'll come to the fatwa, because there's also a media report, social media, you know, video going around, and statements about what the fatwa that was declared in the past as well. We'll come to that.
We'll get your intervention. Mr. Garba here tried to make a distinction between words, you know, and action. He's saying that he has acknowledged that Pantami actually made those comments, you know, in the past, but perhaps was not involved, in terrorism itself. But how does a state, you're a lawyer, how does a state handle people who make, very insightful comments that could provoke violence?
I was thinking about when Garba said there is no connection or link between what I say and what my follower does. I'm like a politician who tells people things, expecting them to hear it, understand it, accept it, act on it, including by going to vote for him. Now saying there's no link between what I say and what you do. It's shocking that such analogy or such connections could come out this morning. It's clear. When preachers preach and call for violence, there are people who follow through. It was in this country where Nigerians were sitting on their own. One, I think it was Miss Ward in Denmark or something. Or they said they were going to bring Miss Ward here and people started killing people. One Miss Ward, something happened in Denmark. Charlie Hebdo happened in France. People were killed here. People who hadn't even heard issues of, who hadn't even heard Charlie Hebdo before. Even people who killed people that day had not ever heard of Charlie Hebdo until a preacher told them something about it. And they acted on it. The question is, if Pantami was just somebody reading free newspaper somewhere under the tree and maybe made comments and people around him heard it, can say, leave that one, forget it. His audience is just that. But this was a man. Till today, I received preachings from Ramadan preachings from Pantami every day. They said I receive it every day. And I'm like, he's preaching. I'm a Christian. If my pastor says anything and I hear in Jesus' name from his mouth, I am brought up to shout a very big amen. So when my pastor is Ali Isa Pantami and he says something and you now tell me no, I should not believe what my pastor is saying, that is my pastor. My pastor is there to tell me what I should do. He's there to guide me. So if he has guided me to tell me that he is going to lead an army into Plateau State. So we're not discussing Taliban now. We're not discussing Al Qaeda. We're not discussing Boko Haram. I'm saying there's an audio recording where Pantami says, give him, he will lead the army into Plateau State, and people will be killed.
Yes, we have to go now, but
so let me
as we wind down.
Let me make this point. And if my pastor says that, and he's a pastor I believe in, by the time I will carry the machete to machete somebody, I will not even know because my pastor said it. And when pastor says something, they will tell you God said. They won't just tell you as pastor said. They will tell you God said. And because you regard this man as somebody who God speaks to, you will just go and do it. So the simplest thing there is, but I never denounced any of his views before he was exposed. For whatever reason he was exposed. But there was no record. In the best defense Pantami should have had is a defense to show that, even before this time, look at this recording, I had renounced those views. But you be caught with your hands in the, and you say, no, okay, I've just repented. And you say, we should forgive you because of that. Listen, whatever is left of the Buhari brand, Pantami's continuation in office damages it irreparably. Okay,
let's just have Mr. Adamu Garba respond to you as a round off. Yes, should Pantami still remain in office or should he go?
The problem is in Nigeria, generally, religion, across, we have a mindset issue. There is my individual right as a pastor or imam to preach my own message. And you also have your own individual freedom to assimilate this thing and act accordingly or not to do so. The fact that certain imam or certain pastor tell me to do this doesn't mean that I should just blindly go and do it, because I have my own freedom of expression and it is based on that individual responsibility that I will be treated. So the fact that a teacher or a imam or pastor tell you to do this as a lawyer, I don't expect you to process this information and to look at the gravity according to the extent of the law, because the imam or a pastor is not a law of the land. The law of the land is different from imam and the pastor, and the constitution governs the law of the land. So if the imam and the pastor asks you to violate the constitution and you did so, you are at your own peril. Why did you decide to go against the constitution, against the law of the land? Why? So that means you are at your own peril. So nobody is going to hold the I'm coming. You can hold the imam or the pastor for making a very bad statement, but that ends as a statement because there was no action to indicate a crime.
So you cannot be prosecuted
for what you should be the one. You can't be prosecuted for just what you said.
Yeah, but then we don't have even the hate speech something. The hate speech something just recently came about. So it was based on